The Goat House is back with an updated 2-round NFL mock draft after the combine. Feel really good about these updates heading into free agency. This draft class is actually really solid, better than expected. You'll see it as you see the talent that actually can make it to round 2. But let's break it down. With the first pick, the Tennessee Titans select Miami quarterback Cam Ward, first overall. A lot of buzz about the Titans potentially trading this pick, and I did consider that in this mock, going to 3, swapping with the Giants and taking Abdul Carter. A lot of buzz before the combine about them and Abdul Carter. Injury for him doesn't seem to be a worry, but that's something. And then Cam Ward shows up at the combine, does not work out, but he does the interviews, and several teams claiming he aced the interviews. They're even higher on Cam Ward. He's the clear-cut number 1 quarterback according to several teams. And there's some legit people out of Tennessee that believe they can go Cam Ward, and I am buying into it. They need a quarterback. Let's say they sign Sam Darnold in free agency, then we can kind of go to the scenario where they traded 3 and take Abdul Carter. But team that needs a quarterback right now and for the future, they got one here that is rising up boards that potentially is worthy of the first overall pick in this class, so why not take them? They go Cam Ward first overall. Browns going with Shedeur Sanders at number 2, the Colorado quarterback. It just really feels like the Browns are going to grab a quarterback. You could actually argue that they may be higher on Sanders than Cam Ward. Most teams, and by most teams, I think almost all the teams are probably going to be higher on Cam Ward, but the Browns, they'll like Sanders' accuracy. Kevin Stefanski learned under Pat Shemar. Pat Shemar was the offense when they were in Minnesota. Shemar was the offense coordinator for Shedeur Sanders in the Colorado Buffaloes this year. So there's some connections there, and then overall just system fit makes some sense. Could they trade up one spot to 1 and get their guy, whether it's Sanders or Ward? You can't rule that out, but they're going to take a quarterback at 2, in my opinion. Doesn't feel like smoke. So in this scenario, they take Shedeur Sanders second overall. So that leaves a very interesting situation for the New York Football Giants, who are desperately trying to trade up to the first overall pick with the Titans and select probably Cam Ward. You would hope it's Ward over Sanders. A lot of buzz about Ward coming out here. But what if both those quarterbacks are gone? Like this scenario, they have a tough decision, or do they? They could just take best player available. I believe they would go Travis Hunter because they can use him at receiver or corner. Pair him with Malik Neighbors at receiver would be insane, but they definitely could use him at corner as well. Just best player available. Sounds like they could get Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers has some targets to throw to if Hunter plays receiver, but they could go Abdul Carter. Thibodeau has not worked out that well, nearing an end of his contract, so pair him with Brian Burns. Man, that would be insane. Armand Membo, if they want that right tackle or right guard, he can play that. He's a riser to watch near the top 5. They can go that route. But what if they pull that surprise that we almost see every single year, team reaching on a quarterback, even though I do like Jaxson Dart, whose stock is kind of up after the combine? Do they do it? So those are some options. So the new feature I added with the other options considered, it's what I considered in this situation. Of course, there could be a long list of different scenarios at this stage, but that is the little extra feature I added. But in this scenario with those 2 top quarterbacks, I don't think they would reach for a quarterback, but they might. But they would go Travis Hunter, in my opinion, at number 3. For the Patriots, go with Abdul Carter. He falls right in their lap. Arguably the best player in the draft, him versus Travis Hunter. So they grab Carter, big-time pass rusher to pair it Keon White for the future. Love that. Going in this mock, I really thought, man, the offensive linemen helped themselves. Vrabel and this Patriots team, they're going to really value offensive line. They need it very badly, and they value it on top of it. So I really thought about giving them Armand Membo of Missouri, who really helped himself, the power, the athleticism. But with Abdul Carter dropping in their lap, how do you pass on Carter, even though it's for a great prospect, offensive line prospect? You got to go with Abdul Carter in this scenario if he is there. 5th pick, the Jags go at Armand Membo, the Missouri offensive tackle that does have some upside at guard if you want to move him there, but I do love him at the right tackle position. And you do not see an offensive lineman mocked to the Jags a ton. They get a new staff basically, and they have 2 tackles. Walker Little, who does have durability concerns, but they would love for him to be the left tackle, and then Anton Harrison, who's a right tackle, and definitely still needs to grow further. He felt like a perfect Doug Peterson scheme fit. So Liam Cohen coming in there, maybe he views doesn't view him as good of a scheme fit. Again, Membo come in, be that right tackle. It's an upgrade, or you can put him at right guard, which they could use as well. So either spot definitely helps them. There's no obvious choice here. Obviously, we considered Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. Is he moving down the board because he's way lighter than expected and didn't test? He's still a phenomenal player. Should still go in the top 10 range. But I love this fit here for the Jaguars, who sneakily could use an offensive lineman. Number 6, the Raiders do it. They pull the trigger on one of the best players in the draft, Ashton, Jeanty, the Boise State running back. Jeanty, his stock is actually up, even though, in my opinion, even though he did not work out at all at the combine, because type player Jeanty is, he would not have sat out of that combine if he felt, if the feedback he was getting was mid to late first round pick. That guy would have been out there competing to make himself a top 10 pick, but he sat out, instantly decided no need to work out. I think there's teams telling them, hey, we're thinking about you here, all the way up here. The Raiders, Pete Carroll came out and said, that whole staff came out and said, we're really going to value running the football in trenches. They have a decent offense line. Of course, it could be touched up, but they got a decent offense line, in my opinion, on paper. Defensive line, they got stars. They could add more. Get that star running back. I can totally see them doing. I think Jeanty's going to go a lot earlier than what I was mocking previously. He knows he's going early, but the Raiders make the move at 6. Could they trade back a little bit and get him? It's definitely possible. At 7, the Jets go with Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, arguably an elite prospect. Jets, Aaron Glenn came out and said they're looking, basically what he said, they're looking for dogs, looking for tough guys that want to play the game. And Tyler Warren might be at the top of the list when it comes to guys like that. They also could use a tight end. He is a different type of prospect too. I like a little mix of George Kittle and a mix of TJ Hawkinson. Combine them and you got a guy like Tyler Warren. So I think very highly of him. Strongly consider mocking them Mason Graham. They could use another interior player. Does his weight not working out the combine decide anything with these teams? We will see, but I like Warren for the Jets. Then the Panthers go at Mason Graham, so maybe he slides a little bit, but he's kind of been mocked around this range, but didn't work out the combine, a little on the lighter side, way lighter than what Michigan had him listed as, but he's got great tape. He knows how to shed blocks. He's such a quick mover, knows how to get in the backfield. So the Panthers, they'll be looking for interior defense linemen in free agency. They could go for Milton Williams. I'm expecting them to go for them. So if they add him, they could be looking at a different position here at 8. That'd be the reason for the post-free agency mock draft, but no guarantee they're going to get him. They add Graham in there with Derek Brown in this scenario. A highly considered Jalen Walker, linebacker / pass rusher from Georgia. 9, the Saints take Jalen Walker, the Georgia linebacker / pass rusher. I love his upside off the edge. He doesn't quite have the measurements for it, but the measurements aren't completely lacking. He has some length for his height. It's not elite length, but I definitely love his upside there, but you can be unique. You can move him around to different spots. So the Saints are going to switch defensive schemes. They bring in Brandon Staley, so a little bit different of a defense. They need edge rushers as it is, but they really do not have the pass rushers to fit his scheme. So I think they'll love the athleticism of Walker, and they bring in Kellen Moore to kind of lead the show, and it just coming from the Eagles, understanding what they do in the draft and what approach they take, this just feels like a pick. Maybe it reminds them of a Nolan Smith for this team. So Saints have some needs. They could go offensive line, strongly consider Will Campbell. Some teams are going to be split on him, lacking in the arm length, the wingspan department, but a very solid offensive lineman they could grab here. And then the Bears grab Will Campbell, the LSU offensive tackle. He's got great tape at left tackle, but he is lacking length, and the wingspan is very much lacking, so a lot of teams just refuse to play those guys at tackle, so they'll put him at guard. The Bears could use him either spot. They're trying to go in free agency and add some offensive linemen, but at this time, it's very likely they could need help at left tackle or one of the guard spots. So Will Campbell dropping in their lap with the tape that he has, the performance he put on the last 2 years, maybe just too good to pass here for Chicago at 10. At 11, there goes a big-time riser, Shemar Stewart, the Texas A&M freak pass rusher, one of the biggest winners of the combine. That big, that size, length, and that athleticism, explosiveness is ridiculous. And you watch him on tape, yes, he is lacking production, lacking sacks. He did go against a lot of quick read offenses, a lot of RPO, but he caused chaos. He disrupted plays, and even there's some reps where he won where maybe it won't even count as a pressure, but he knows how to shed blocks. He can win with the bull rush. He's a freak athlete. The 49ers really value traits when it comes to physical traits and athletic traits, and Shemar Stewart is one of the very top guys in the entire draft class, not just edge rushers, when it comes to that category. So I think the Niners would love to have him, pair him with Nick Bosa. He gets some help up there. So Stewart's got a bright future with the right defense, the right coaching. Consider Mykel Williams because he has those physical traits for sure, and he can move around a little bit more, to the inside, help stop the run. Derek Harmon rising up boards, would love him with the Niners. So I considered some strong defensive players because the offensive players are off the board. Could they move up for an Armand Membo, who's a really good fit for them? We'll see. A lot of options for San Francisco. The Cowboys at 12 take a big-time riser, Matthew Golden, the Texas receiver. People are going to start to understand that he's in that top-tier receiver conversation, adding elite speed on top of him being the best route runner in the entire class. The great footwork, gets separation, improved as the year went on. Big-time playmaker, can track the ball. Not the biggest dude, but he has some contested catch skills as well. This is what the Cowboys are looking for. This is kind of what they want. This could be a prime Brandon Cooks. This is what they wanted for in Brandon Cooks to pair with CeeDee Lamb. I also consider Mykel Williams for them because I think they'll be looking for the length and the run-stopping ability off the edge from Williams. But Matthew Golden, I love that fit at 12. He is rising up the boards right now. Dolphins at 13 go Ohio State offensive tackle Josh Simmons. Teron Armstead leaning towards retirement. Yes, they have Patrick Paul, but they can move him to right tackle. Simmons, a much better player prospect right away. Probably my most intriguing prospect of this class just because the boom or bust level. I definitely could see. Part of me wants to grade him as an elite prospect, and part of me is like, God, is he going to end up a bust? Because, he's coming off an injury. That's a red flag, but he's supposed to be good to go for his pro day, which is great. But if you watch him on tape, the quickness, his foot quickness, and how he explodes out of his stance, best in the class, no question. It's elite. It is elite, and that gets me. I love when either side of the ball, I love it. But he is on the lighter side. Maybe not necessarily weight, but the way he plays, his power. Stronger pass rushers will drive him back and collapse the pocket. It happens quite a bit. So there's some big positives and big negatives with Simmons, and the Dolphins would like him at 13. He's a guy that can go even earlier in this, but a guy to watch leading up to that actual NFL draft. 14, the Colts select Colston Loveland, the Michigan star tight end, a fantastic route runner for a tight end, as good as you're going to find. Some teams are going to prefer him over Tyler Warren. Warren is more of the, I compared him to Kittle, Hawkinson. Maybe you could say Gronk just because the toughness, and Loveland is more of your Travis Kelce, so some teams might be preferring that. He's coming off a little bit of an injury, why he didn't work out at the combine. Don't think it's that much of a red flag there, and the Colts, who are desperately looking for a tight end, would love to have him here at 14. 15, the Falcons select Mykel Williams, the Georgia pass rusher. Another intriguing prospect, a little boom or bust, because he has the physical traits. The size, the length, ridiculous. He's got good experience playing off the edge and even sliding inside, stopping the run at a high level, either spot. I do not love his get off. It's not terrible, but he does not explode off the ball at the rate I am looking for pass rushers, and that's something that really doesn't change. So he could be like a Tyree Wilson type player, which we saw go high a couple years ago, been a little disappointing. But in Falcons under Jeff Ulbrich, the new defense coordinator, he's going to really value the physical traits from Mykel Williams. But they could consider other edge rushers or a defensive back like a Jahdae Barron. And at 16, the Arizona Cardinals go with Tetairoa McMillan, the receiver from Arizona. Sounds like the buzz is saying he might slide a little bit. Didn't work out at the combine. Matthew Golden soaring up the boards. Maybe more of the quicker separator and the elite speed. So more teams might prefer him. But McMillan has a shot to go top 10. But the Cardinals take a shot. They're actually looking for a receiver more than people realize. And then you might go Marvin Harrison Jr., McMillan, two long, big body outside receivers. Can they use both those? They most definitely could use both. McMillan actually has a lot of upside. I think moving him around in different spots, having him be a mismatch in the slot. He played like 100 or so snaps, just over 100 in the slot at Arizona, and it was dominant. Pure mismatch. He is really good going over the middle of the field on slants. Well, I'm giving a comparison to Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, big body, contested catch guy, dominated the outside, but at times you could put him inside, have him run across the middle of the field, and he was absolutely dominant. So I love that comp. I think the Cardinals would actually love to have him. It kind of feels like a steal at this part of the draft, but they can consider interior defensive line, edge, and then interior offensive line as well. So Cardinals have quite a few options here at 16. 17, Michigan Wolverine Kenneth Grant goes to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they drafted his teammate Chris Jenkins last year so they could pair those two together. They got to get better in the interior. Specifically, number one, the guy they're going to add needs to stop the run. He needs to stop the run at a pretty high level, and Kenneth Grant does that. He has a shot to go a lot earlier just because he's a rare type of guy. That big of a body moving that fast. I wish we saw it in the combine, but a little hamstring thing popped up. You do not see it, and he has production, kind of causing chaos and disrupting. So I think the Bengals would love to have Grant there, but could consider a guy like Harmon, or they did release Alex Cappa. Was not a huge surprise, so they could use a guard. Bengals have some needs on defense. Let's see how they approach free agency. They actually just tagged T. Higgins seconds ago as I was recording this video. 18, the Seahawks grab Gray Zabel, a big riser from the Senior Bowl and then from the Combine as well. Just so smooth, so quick, so explosive, the North Dakota State offensive tackle that has that in his back pocket that he can play that spot. Love that, but he's going to play either guard or center. It's almost sounding like more teams like him at center. Seahawks need guard or center. I think he's more of a fit than, we'll say, a Tyler Booker. In my opinion, in Clint Kubiak, their new offense coordinator in his system, he typically, first thing they're going to look for offense lineman, can you block? First off, do you have some traits everyone looks for? But the foot quickness is very, very important in that outside zone scheme. So I think they'll actually prefer a guy like this over a guy like Tyler Booker. Zabel is much more athletic. I do like the fit in Mike McDonald's defense of James Pierce Jr., who's still on the board here, guy that could go very early as well. But big needs on the O-line in Seattle. And there goes James Pierce Jr., the fastest pass rusher in the class, blazing 4.4 speed. Love this fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Would fit right in with Todd Bowles' defense. A guy that actually is pretty versatile, could play off ball and drop in coverage if you need him to. But I love him off the edge, the get off, the athleticism, the length, the production. It's all there. Combining all those things, you might say he should go a lot earlier. Definitely could. There's some other good pass rushers up there that could push him back. Some people worried about character concerns. I don't know if it's a huge thing right now. It's not really anything being put out there from the NFL. We'll see. But Buccaneers grab the pass rusher they desperately, desperately need at the moment. 20, the Broncos select Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon, who is a big-time riser. I'm believing this is kind of the bottom line of where he's going to go. He can go a lot earlier. The Broncos need a defensive tackle more than people think. They got Zach Allen up front. Zach Allen's been fantastic for them. They can add an actual defensive tackle, a little bit more physical, on that defensive line as well, like a guy like Harmon. I think it's a type of guy Sean Payton would look for in terms of defensive linemen. They have to have the trait, starting with length. He has that more so than Walter Nolan. But Harmon, he sheds blocks and gets into the backfield as good as anyone in this class. He just has to finish a little bit better. That's the thing. But I heard he aced interviews. Sounds like a very intelligent guy at the Combine. So I could see him going all the way up at that 49ers pick at 11. So he's an interesting one. I think Sean Payton and company would love to have him in Denver. Also consider running backs and receivers for Denver here. Those are possibilities. Got some good players to choose from. 21, Will Johnson ended up slipping through. This is where you start to realize, when I was doing this mock, you start to realize after the Combine here, this draft class is actually way more talented than expected. Some of these guys could start to slide a little bit. Will Johnson missed a good chunk of the season due to injury, and I thought it was kind of just him playing it safe because he knew he's going to the NFL and Michigan season was over, but too banged up to perform at the Combine, I suppose, so he could slide a little bit. He's not going to be for everyone, but he's got some good length on him, some good athleticism. We think we can see him work at the Combine, but good instincts. So he could slide a little bit. Steelers would love to have him. He'd instantly be their best corner, even though Joey Porter Jr. does have a bright future. You pair those two together, but they could take Barron. They could go with one of those slot receivers as well. But Will Johnson ends up being a steal for the Steelers at 21. Harbaugh and the Chargers go with that running back, Omarion Hampton, who lit up the Combine. No surprise, but man, when do you see a running back that big, physical, violent, that can block the way he does, that can run the way he does with the speed that he has, and can pass catch the way that he does? He's a pretty rare running back prospect, and Harbaugh and the Chargers really value running the football. they could bring J.K. Dobbins back, and they trust him to be the full guy, full load guy. Hampton would make them a lot better. Walter Nolan's still on the board. I really considered that. I had a hard time back and forth, but Hampton's got to go first round with the talent he has, the rare running back that he is. Why not the Chargers to take him at 22? 23, the Packers select Texas defensive back Shedeur Barron, who can play outside, and in the measurements say he probably plays inside, but he's so good on the outside. His reactions are next level. He's getting a lot of buzz that would actually say I should be mocking him a lot earlier in this, but just going through the different scenarios, this is where he ended up being. There's some really good players up there, and he's a really good player. I think teams will be split on him. Some teams might... We're not going to play him outside. We're going to play him only inside. And where do we value that? Not yet. Kind of like Brian Branch. I had an elite grade on Brian Branch, and I knew he wasn't a safety. He was a slot player, and the Lions end up stealing him. So that's kind of how teams think sometimes. So he could slip a little bit. He could go a lot earlier. Packers could be looking for DBs or edge rushers as well here at 23. 24, Walter Nolan slides down to the Vikings here. He's a rangy prospect, meaning he can go very early, around the Niners pick at 11, or he can end up down here. Didn't work out at the combine. His arms end up measuring a little smaller than expected. Not that they're undersized, but guys like Derek Harmon really boost their stock and might be going ahead of Nolan now. Nolan could be a boomer bust player, super flashy, explosive get off, needs to finish a little bit better, but the Vikings definitely looking for a pass rushing defensive tackle to pair with Harrison Phillips. But there's a lot of options for the Vikings here that I had a hard time deciding between. Nolan just seemed like really good value, but Amon Worry from South Carolina, they could look at safety, corner, guard, really any of those here at the 24th pick, but Nolan too good to pass. 25, the Texans select guard Tyler Booker from Alabama. Texans definitely need some offensive line help. He ended up slipping a little bit. Big, powerful offensive lineman. He is a little lacking in the athletic department. Does that cause him to slide? But it's just going to depend on what fit for him. But they could go this route or a common mock that we've had, Emeka Egbuka, the chemistry with Stroud and them in need of another receiver that has a skill set of Egbuka. But I like Booker here. Not too good to pass probably at 25. 26, the Rams select a big-time riser at corner from Kentucky. Maxwell Harrison was a huge riser after the Senior Bowl. Once again, even more so after the Combine. Fastest player in the draft. That athleticism at the corner position, combined at what he does on tape, his ability to play press man, press zone, different type of coverages. I mean, it's rare. So you could argue this guy should go even earlier than this. Rams started to mix up their coverages last year. They were kind of stuck being a heavy cover 4 team before last year. A change at defensive coordinator. They were mixing up, even adding some man. They were kind of like the team that ran the least amount of man before. Kind of the down stretch of last year, the ending of last year, I should say. So could be open to getting a player, a corner, a coverage guy like this. But they could go with the receiver as well. Some different options. Kind of remove left tackle as an option because they did bring back Alaric Jackson to a big contract, but we'll see. 27, the Ravens select Malachi Starks from Georgia, needing that free safety, a guy that could be that guy they hoped Marcus Williams could be, but Starks is very rangy in the back end, smooth mover, big-time playmaker, paired him with Kyle Hamilton. That is huge. Starks played more in the slot this year, which I thought he was better just strictly as a free safety the year before. So be a really good fit with the Ravens. Another fit with the Ravens I absolutely love that we mocked it last time, Donovan Ezaraku from Boston College, who may have helped himself at the Combine as well, but he has specific fits. So in this scenario, he ended up slipping through and becoming a steal. We'll see in the second round. But I do love that fit for Baltimore, but Starks makes a lot of sense for them at 27. 28, the Lions select Mike Green, pass rusher from Marshall. Super productive. He helped stop the run as well. He is undersized, and then a little hamstring tightness popped with the Combine and was not able to work out. For the undersized guys, man, you hope you work out, and you hope you work out well. We didn't get to see any of that from him, so he could slide a little bit, but he is a production machine. He had good moments against Ohio State, which is huge. The whole game wasn't great, but he had some really good moments that are good for his stock. Virginia Tech game, outstanding. That's against good competition, but you get to the last game of the year against Louisiana, and it was not a good outing for him. So the most recent game we've seen, not great, undersized, couldn't work out the Combine. So there are some negatives in there with his current status, but man, he's productive. He's good. He showed out the Senior Bowl. I think the Lions would like to have him at 28, looking for defensive linemen, a corner if they can't get Carlton Davis back. We will see. 29. Some offensive tackles end up slipping through in this scenario. Calvin Banks Jr., he's another rangy prospect where he can go pretty damn early or he can slide back. I think he's going to slide a little bit more than people think just because you look at the other offensive tackles, there's something very flashy about them. I mean, Membu, combining his power and athleticism, it's just rare. Will Campbell, I mean, he looks elite on tape. He's just lacking the length. Banks doesn't look elite on tape. He looks very good. And then you guys got guys like Josh Simmons, who has elite quickness, ability to get out of his stance. So I think guys like this that are just great. There's nothing super flashy, but he did, for his power and his athleticism he showed at the combine, it's pretty solid, but he could slip a little bit, and the Commanders would jump all over it, maybe put Coleman at guard, and then start Banks at left tackle. They get even better. They added Debo to help Jaden Daniels. You need offensive linemen to protect this guy. They absolutely need more help there. But I consider Josh Connerly, who end up slipping through a little bit. I actually like Connerly a little better than Banks, but for this scheme, I like Banks a little bit more. So some really good options at tackle for the Commanders if they decide if they want a starting one. Bills at 30 select a massive riser, an absolute freak, the strong safety from South Carolina, Nick Amanwari. I mean, 6'3" safety, can man up on tight ends, freak downhill guy, and that athletic at that size with 6'3", 220, ridiculous. Bills could use multiple safeties. They can get creative with him, use him at, man up against tight ends. They badly need that. They continue to get beat up by Travis Kelce, but other tight ends are emerging as well. They can get creative with him, blitz him, use him at linebacker. The Bills are trying to, they're a pure zone coverage team. They're trying to add more into the mix here. So I think that this helps it. Really thought about Jahad Campbell from Alabama as well. But the Bills will have some options. I would assume they go defense. It could be safety, corner, linebacker, edge, interior defense line. It literally could be any of it there. And they'll have some options. The edge starts to run, edge rushers, the very quality options start to run out a little bit around this range, but a freak riser here. 31, the Chiefs get a steal here. Josh Connerly should go earlier in this. Very athletic left tackle. He improved as the year went on, looked really set down the stretch. The tape was really solid for Oregon. He's really good at getting downfield and hitting next level blocks. But in this scenario, some tackles drop. There's a big space in the middle of the first round where these teams really don't need tackles that bad. Even the Rams filled that hole by signing their free agent. Well, it wasn't a hole. They just signed their free agent back. So some of these guys could slip. Maybe some of these teams that like Chiefs who badly need a guy like this could trade up a little bit. But this would be a great pick for them. I think Connerly should go a lot earlier. He had a good combine, but he goes 31 to the Chiefs. And before we get to the second round, the Eagles, Super Bowl champion Eagles at 32, Jahad Campbell. It's an interesting one, the Alabama linebacker. It's interesting because the Eagles typically do not value linebacker like this, but can make a couple reasons for an exception here. They may be valuing him now after Vic Fangio just valued it. A guy like Zach Bond was dominant for them, even though it's a totally different player. And they could use another linebacker if they lose Bond. Maybe they get him back. So Fangio definitely helps them value it more. And this isn't just a linebacker. This is a Swiss Army knife, an athletic freak that can play off-ball linebacker and rush off the edge. Some teams might just have him as an edge rusher, but an absolute Swiss Army knife that they would use at either spot and get the most out of him. So I actually do like the fit, even though it is weird seeing linebacker and Eagles together in the first round. So we'll see what happens there. Definitely they did release Darius Slay, which might surprise some people a little bit ago, so they could use a corner. I consider Trey Amos, who I think is a first-round player, but could slide to the second, and they would prefer him over the other corners. Maybe Revel from East Carolina, an option as well. And then Donovan Ezeraku, I think he's worthy of a first-round pick, lengthy, or maybe early second, lengthy, productive edge rusher, would fit the Eagles scheme for sure. I like him as a stand-up 3-4. So that one, they got some options. Super Bowl champions, the Eagles always end up with options and getting a steal, so any of those directions would be awesome. Round 2, starting with the Browns at 33, they get that running back of the future, Quinshawn Judkins, 220-plus pounder, is physical as him, but he is athletic as shit. We saw it at the Combine. The Browns would love him to maybe be that next Nick Chubb for them. And the Giants get Jaxson Dart at 34. He could end up going in the first round. Does somebody reach for him very, very early because the two quarterbacks are gone. They need one. He was pretty good with his ball placement at the Combine. You still worry about going from that Kiffin system to the NFL. It's an adjustment. Him under center. That's a major adjustment. He's going to have to sit at first. So dart behind Aaron Rodgers, if they get Aaron Rodgers, would make some sense. Maybe they trade up in the end of the first. I almost did that in this mock to get that fifth-year option because he's going to be sitting for a year. So maybe you need that. Receivers end up dropping. I mean, we're starting to see how good this draft class is. Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka still on the board. That typically happens, I feel like. Some really good receivers end up surprising and dropping to the second. Just other talent. And then Burden's super electrifying, but you watch him on tape this year, it's a lot of gadget plays. He barely, over his career, he does not have a long list of catches that were outside of 10 yards. Of course, he yards after catch makes him over 10 yards, but so some teams might be just frustrated, like, hey, we'll wait a little bit to take him, but he had a good combine too. The Titans get Ward and get Burden to pair it Ridley, pretty good there. Trey Amos for the Jags, really solid corner. I think his upside's in zone. People talk about press man. I love his upside in zone. Really solid, smart, instinctive corner that could go in the first. Emeka Egbuka goes to Chip Kelly and the Raiders, so they get their star receiver hopefully for the future there as he slips a little bit. Did not work out at the combine. Donovan Jaxson, another Ohio State Buckeye for the Patriots, could play guard or left tackle for them. They barely need offensive line. The Bears got a couple picks here. Travion Henderson, explosive running back for them, for Ben Johnson's offense. Then Ariante Ursary, who had a pretty good combine for the Saints, plug him in at left tackle, pair him with Fuaga. And then the Bears get Donovan Ezuraku. I guess you could question fit for Dennis Allen's defense. We'll see, but just too good to pass here at this point. A guy that could go in the first round. Jalen Knoll, the biggest winner, in my opinion. There's a lot of biggest winners, but the biggest winner of the entire combine, a safe pick, a slot receiver, really good route running ability, freak athlete. Jets are going to move on from Devonta Adams. They pair Noel with Garrett Wilson. And then Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia, the fastest center of all time, history of the NFL combine, and was pretty good on tape for Georgia as well. He's actually the fifth fastest offensive lineman of all time. So the 49ers definitely need a center. I think perfect for Shanahan's scheme. Caleb Johnson for the Cowboys to get a physical back that has incredible vision. Colts grab Azareé Thomas, the Florida State corner. Really good press corner here. Could go in the first. Siobhan Revel from East Carolina coming off the injury. I think he kind of gives you poor man Sauce Gardner vibes, and Jeff Ulbrich is the new Falcons defense coordinator coming from the Jets, so I think he would appreciate that. Nick Scorton, guy that can go late first as well. I mean, physical defensive end, was super productive for Purdue. Not as much this year, but he's got some good things on tape, for the Cardinals there. Joshua Farmer, who I'm a fan of, freaky long defensive tackle. Best football's ahead of him for the Dolphins. Benjamin Morrison rejoins Al Golden, the Bengals' new defensive coordinator in Cincy. Seahawks select Josiah Stewart, Michigan pass rusher, severely undersized, but his tape is good. His tape says first round, but he is very undersized. But he also can drop back in coverage, which Mike McDonald likes as well. Mike McDonald actually has a Michigan background as well. Carson Schlesinger, I like the fit with Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a linebacker moving up boards. I like his upside as a blitzer, which they typically will look for. The only knock here, Bucs typically like the more built linebackers, but so they could go Demetrius Knight, but I think Schlesinger's upside as a blitzer makes them, lean that way. Broncos go at Mason Taylor. I am expecting Mason Taylor to be the third tight end off the board. I think the other ones almost hurt their stock a little bit. Arroyo, didn't work out, so I guess you can argue that. But the other ones, but Mason Taylor, third tight end off the board, most likely the Broncos. Sean Payton grab him, give a new weapon for Bo Nix. Isaiah Bond for the Steelers, smooth route runner, can play multiple spots as a receiver. Trey Harris for the Chargers, so they get that physical outside receiver that they need, maybe their next Mike Williams, because they have Ladd McConkey in the slot. JT Tuimoloau for the Packers, definitely looking for another edge rusher. Tuimoloau is instinctive edge rusher. He does a really good job of reading the quarterback, a reason he gets so many damn pass deflections. Alfred Collins for the Bills. He's one to watch. He can go a lot earlier. It could be a surprise first-round candidate. super good stopping a run, super physical. He definitely needs work on his get off, which typically doesn't change too much, but could be a better pass rusher, but he's going to help you stop the run. Jack Besh for the Texans, so the Texans grab that receiver to pair with Nico Collins and then Tank Dell when he's ready. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame to the Panthers, a big-time playmaking free safety for Carolina. They could add one in free agency. I'm watching them when it comes to Cam Bynum and Javon Holland, maybe. He's going to be a little expensive. Both those guys might be expensive, so we'll see what they do. Femi Oladeo from UCLA, off-ball linebacker, turned edge rusher, can align in different spots, can align and rush from ways like he's a Zadarius Smith, for an example. Not that I would fully compare those players, but versatility, different alignments, freakish build, great athlete, a lot of upside as he learns the position more. Just feels like a Ravens guy to me. Tyleek Williams, who could go earlier in this as well, really good run-stopping defensive tackle to pair with Lee McNeil for the Lions. Darian Porter, long corner, that is a freak athlete. We saw that at the Combine. Commanders grab him for the outside to pair with Lattimore, and they have Sainer still as well, obviously, to mainly play the slot, but he could play outside. Demetrius Knight for the Bills, so they grab a linebacker that they could use. Freaky downhill guy, really rangy. And then Darius Alexander for the Chiefs could be in need of another interior defensive lineman. Alexander a little on the older side, so I don't see him going in round one because of that, but he had a pretty good combine, really good tape, long, physical. And then the Eagles go with Harold Fannin Jr., the super productive tight end from Bowling Green, to pair with Dallas Goedert, but it's almost like adding another receiver. So that's the Eagles type. They like using multiple tight ends rather than using 3 receivers. They like to have, you can see that with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, all stars, with Fannin, who was a start Bowling Green, out there at the same time. So kind of a receiver tight end hybrid almost for them. And they did actually hire Bowling Green's head coach as their quarterback coach. Pretty crazy. That's a pretty good get, in my opinion. And not that he has much say. He's just a quarterback coach, but I think he'll have some input at least. And I do think the Eagles would like to add a weapon like that. They can go corner, edge rusher here as well, multiple different routes. But that'll do it. Feel really good about this one post-combine. But the main takeaway, this draft class is good. It's way better than expected. I do think it kind of tails off on somewhere on day 3. There's a lot of draft classes where it's like, how are this many good guys still there? And then there's always going to be that. There's going to be good guys still available, but I don't think it's going to be a long, long list of guys once we get down to, later day 3. But rounds 1 through 4, I think, are way better than expected in this class, and we are learning that now here after the Combine. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Much appreciated if you guys could like, subscribe to notifications. We're about to get into free agency mode. I'm going to rank the free agents, the very best free agents, and to give you some fits in my opinion. And then we're going to rip out the free agency predictions videos. They're going to be spread in different videos, so multiple there. And we'll see where my predictions are. And then free agency day, and then that means grade day. We grade all the free agency signings, several different videos over the course of that first week. And then we're fully in the draft season. So it's exciting times here. I love this time of the year so much. So hopefully you guys do as well. Hope you love our content and join us. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.